Hey, book besties. Welcome to More Than a Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Leyna.
And I'm your other host, LJ.
And today we have a special guest. We have author Claire Sandoval. Sounds like Panama. It's very good to have you here with us. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about, you just wrote a book, Killer Story. It was released in, March?
February.
February. Okay. February. It was released in February. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on. This is so exciting to connect with readers and get to talk about my memoir. So, Killer Story, The Truth Behind True Crime Television, is the story of my career as a true crime producer. So, I started out in local news and I ended up working for CBS News, 48 Hours, and 60 Minutes, and covering all the major murder stories really of the last decade.
And I am not a true crime person. I think so. I met Claire at a book signing, and
Yes.
the whole story of how this came to be was I had wanted to go see you at Fabled in Waco because that's my absolute favorite bookstore. And I had seen that you were there, and LJ has been trying to get me to read true crime. And I saw your book and I was like, okay, this sounds like more of the, it's the behind the scenes. It's the investigation part. It's putting it all together. And I was like, this sounds like a great way to dip my toe into it. And it wouldn't be too scary was how I was looking at it. And whenever the Fabled event came around, I actually had a ticket for it and everything, but my daughter got the flu. And so I was like, I don't want to go spread the flu all around Texas. So I stayed home. And then I saw that our local bookshop, Neighbor Books, had you out as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally doing that. So I was very excited to get to meet you.
And you had invited me to go. And then I thought I wasn't working that weekend, but I was. And so I did not get to. But about 2 weeks before that, I had a different friend from Bonham, Texas, tell me, hey, I just listened to this really cool podcast season about an unsolved murder from my small town. You love stuff like this. You should totally listen to it. So she sends me a link. I start listening. And so I did not pay attention to the spelling of your name. And so I just heard Sandoval, except I did think, and I was so glad you said this in your book, I did think Sandoval.
Yeah,
And I blame Bravo, the whole Scandoval thing, and Tom Sandoval, if you know who that is. And so I thought that. And so then I went to look to see, I'm like, what is her name? And I go to look and I'm like, Leyna said something about
it was
Saint Amant.
And
so I'm like, wait a minute. And so then didn't realize she had invited me to your book. And you even talked about your book there. It talked about it at the opening of the episodes. And I just did not put two and two together. So I was so excited because I had just been listening to season 2 of Final Days on Earth. And then I didn't get to meet you, but now I get to, so it's okay.
Well, it's just meant to be. I mean, my goodness, I was just in the orbit everywhere.
Yes.
It was only a matter of time before we really connected.
I know, for real. So yeah, which
you are a busy lady.
Yeah.
I do have a few things on the calendar lately. Yes.
I've been following your social media and I'm like, okay, so you hustled whenever you were working for 48 Hours and 60 Minutes just to get, from one end of Texas to the other with all of your stories. But it seems like you're doing the exact same thing, just promoting your book.
It is quite similar, actually. And my son made the joke, I thought you quit that job so you could be home more with us. I was like, well, this is a limited period of time where I'm going to be touring for the book. So, and at least I get to buy round trip tickets. I'm not going one way indefinitely like you do when you're covering a major story and you don't know when you're coming home.
No, I was laughing at every story when they would be like, okay, we need you to get down here. Oh, but we have a Texas ice storm. Okay, so you realize you can't fly in that. Driving and it's going to take 5 times as long. And, and then also people not realizing how expansive Texas is because it's closer if my daughter's a sophomore and her son's a sophomore when they're juniors. It'd be faster for us to go up to Oklahoma or Louisiana to visit schools than to go up to Tech.
Absolutely. Yeah, the geography of Texas is lost on most people, but especially New Yorkers.
I can imagine. You can fit 20 New Yorks in Texas.
I mean, right? Yeah. No, but I was cracking up at all that. And I I don't know. It was so fun that, because like having just discovered you, and you're a Texan and you're semi-local to us, because you're
Yeah.
like, I think we're like kind of catty corner-ish. I don't know.
And I'm
But it's just
all
so
over
fun.
the Metroplex on any given day or week. So you can definitely catch me here, there, and
So fun.
everywhere in DFW.
That's really fun.
I saw you
That's
were
fun.
doing, it was like not a karaoke, but something at like a bar or a barbecue
Oh,
place.
comedy. Wasn't it comedy?
Oh, so I have my first out-of-state event coming up April 30th in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm doing a night of comedy and murder
That sounds
at a
so fun.
bookstore, yeah, in Jacksonville. Yeah, it should be really fun. It's actually my very first intern from People
Aw,
newspapers
That's so
is now
cool.
Jacksonville's top comedian.
that's
Her
so
name's,
Wow.
fun.
yeah, Daisy Tackett. And so she's going to open for me at Happy Medium Books in Jacksonville, Florida, and do like a murder true crime related set. And then we're going to talk about the book, and I'm going to sign the book. So
That's
it
So
should be a great
fun.
night.
That's
Oh my
awesome.
gosh.
Your career has been just expansive because you did start out here in Dallas. You said you graduated from Baylor, came up here for your first job. Actually, you did Peace Corps before that, didn't you?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I was in the Peace Corps Ukraine. Yeah.
So cool.
Wow. I did AmeriCorps, so it was like
Okay.
the American version.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't get to go overseas, but Peace Corps that is a whole other beast. It's
It
so
is.
awesome.
Yeah. They call it the toughest job you'll ever love. And it rings true.
Okay, so I want to get to some of the true crime stuff because
Let's do
I am
it.
the one that's like obsessed. She has promised me, and so August is my birth month. Her birth month was March, so she got to pick the topic. So in August, she has promised me that by then she will have read/watched more true crime.
So
Because
you're
of me.
helping me
'Cause
with this.
That's
yes,
great.
because there is a joke on our podcast that every chance I get, I turn this into a true crime podcast. So today it's like my dream is coming true. So this, obviously these cases that you talked about in your book, and you've done some on 48 Hours, which I do have to say, I knew that you were a producer, but it's still like hearing them, like other people present your stuff. And I'm like, but I want to see Claire. I want her to tell. I mean, I get it. They're the talent, whatever you call them. But I was just like, no, like, I don't know. I'm like, did you thank her? Like got all this stuff set up for you. Like,
The
I don't know.
producer's job is, yeah, often thankless. Yes.
Yeah, but I was just like, oh, but it was so fun, which actually, okay, so this was not a Texas case, but I am just like Todd Kohlhepp. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That is one of the craziest stories. And when I looked on IMDb and that was listed there, I was like, that's the first one I have to watch because I've listened to so many podcasts about it. And so did you like get to meet him or his mom? Is that because I mean they interviewed his mom.
Right. So that was a really challenging situation. I remember this didn't make it into the book, by the way. You're getting
No, it's not. It's not.
Killer
Exclusive
Stories Volume
information.
This is
2 right
bonus.
here.
Yeah.
It's a bonus. So I remember I was actually sitting in church and I got a text message from my boss and it said, "How fast can you get to Greenville, South Carolina?" And she's like, "There's a serial killer investigation going on." And I'm like sitting here like, the choir's singing,
You're
and
like,
I'm
I
just
am in
like,
church.
this is quite the whiplash I'm getting. It's not Monday morning yet, right? But I got out, I looked up flights and I'm like, yeah, there's direct flights from DFW to Greenville, South Carolina. So like I can be there tonight. And so they had at that point found the girl in the shipping container who had been chained and, was amazingly alive. And so she had told them, who her captor was, and they had already arrested Todd Kohlhepp, who had been working as a real estate agent and had this separate property where he would bring his victims and usually kept them alive for a period of time and then would grow tired of them and kill them and then bury them on the property. I believe there were 6 or 7
Yeah, it was something
victims.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an extended period of time that this went on for. This was not like a short one. And it was so creepy because he was, using his front as a real estate agent to lure people to these properties
This is why I
alone
don't like
at
true
night
crime.
for showing, right? It is just so disturbing. And a lot of times his victims would be the people that he would hire to clean the properties because he would, kind of vet them to be people he could pay in cash. He wouldn't be filling out any type of legal, tax documents, so there wouldn't be a record. And in this case, I believe there were two people who had showed up, and he had killed the man and he'd kept the girl alive, kept the woman alive. And so it was just horrific to get to the scene and know that, thankfully he was behind bars now, but we were trying to figure out how many victims were there, who would talk, and trying to find people who knew Todd Kohlhepp and didn't suspect, that he might be a serial killer. So I remember knocking on a lot of doors. I remember going to Todd Kohlhepp's mother's house. I believe this is one of our producer tricks. We had found out like her favorite restaurant, I think, and we had ordered food from there. And so I was like delivering it as a way to try to, get things going. There's so many murder stories in my head. I don't even have a clear picture of her.
That's
Or
okay.
if I made the connection with her. I know I dropped food off at the house. I remember that. And I remember I got someone to answer the door because I was like, I don't want the food to, I think I had a number and I could text or something. And I was like, I just don't want the food to spoil. I want to make sure that there's food here or whatever. And so I know I connected with somebody in that way. And then, they ended up doing the interview. I think it was with David Begnaud was the correspondent in South Carolina. And it was a whirlwind. I was there for a week, a solid week in Greenville, got to know all the hot spots. But that was my serial killer case that was like in progress, because a lot of times the other ones, were going to the trial and things like that.
Yeah.
And this was like, we
From
just
the
found out this
beginning.
guy was a serial killer yesterday. Can you please go go learn more? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's such a crazy story. And then when he brought up the cold case of the bike shop, and like that's the part that I had also heard about, where he had killed all those people. And the part that had always like freaked me out was about one of the victims' wives, that like how they had mixed up the DNA of the men and were trying to say she was a person of interest because they thought she'd had an affair on her husband with his friend, and that the baby was the friend's, but they had mislabeled. And I remember like that would be like your worst nightmare. Can you imagine? And you're like, but I really didn't. No one believes you. Like, I know this is my husband's kid. Like, oh my gosh.
I remember there being a story about she changed the diaper and they took the diaper for
yes,
DNA.
that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
It really was. And the bike shop murders were this notorious case, cold case, I want to say quadruple murder. And
something like that,
it was one of the ones, I think I still have the deck up here somewhere. I have this deck of cards that's all unsolved cases.
Oh my
from
gosh.
South Carolina. And,
it was in there.
The deck that I'm like looking on my bookshelf for it, but the deck that I have now, it's outdated and it still has the South Carolina unsolved bike shop murders on it, because it was one of those that they were like, really working every lead they could. And the crazy story was that he didn't know how to ride a motorcycle, and he was like, however old he was at the time, I don't remember, 25 or something, and went into the shop and wanted to buy his first motorcycle, which, this could happen, and it could happen to anyone. And he felt like they made fun of him for not knowing how to start the bike, not knowing how to get on it. And I think it like tipped over.
Something like that, yeah.
He felt personally slighted and came back and murdered all of them. So that's just taking offense to a whole new level.
It really is. I know. It's such a wild case. But I was so excited that you had produced those, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I know that one. But okay, so
I watched that one, and the thing that got me was his mom saying, he's not a monster.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, mama. Just, it made it more kind of that real feeling, because every mom wants to believe that their child would never do anything like that. And that it's like, but he did these things. So I thought that was really,
when she said like, well, I guess he said something smart. They were making fun of him. And like the correspondent was like, so your son gets offended and then he kills people? And she was like, it was such a perfectly delivered, like so in your face, but kind of sassy the way.
Yeah.
And I was like, exactly, exactly. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So outside of like, I know we're supposed to talk about your book too. Well, actually, let's talk about, okay, well, you mentioned Jennifer Harris. Okay. Jennifer Harris was the case that I first heard of. Are we, I mean, can you say who you think did it? I mean, I think we think the same person did. I think
I
everyone.
think everybody thinks the same person.
So, I mean, I like to keep
I
a
know you like to
certain
say impartial, yeah.
level of distance between it. I will say that I would love for a grand jury to be convened in that case and for them to put forth, all the best evidence that they have and see if, a bill would come back, a true bill would come
Yeah.
back. Because I think that they have enough circumstantial evidence for it to be that far in the process. I think the fact that there's never been an arrest, there's never been an indictment, whenever you have so much that ties a specific person to this case and we, just haven't taken that extra step to put it all together and put it in front of a grand jury. I mean, a grand jury gets to decide if there's enough to proceed to a trial. We're not talking about let's just hang them in the town square, let's go through the legal process and let's look at the last person that she was known to have contact with. Let's look at who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to kill her. And let's put that person, forward. And so, yeah, that case, I covered it for 48 hours. I covered it for Final Days on Earth. I talk about it in Killer Story. It's one of those that has really stuck with me, unsolved, to this day. And we're coming up on another anniversary. It's a Mother's Day murder, which is just really horrific. And, Jennifer's family deserves justice. They deserve answers and they deserve their day in court. However, it may end. They deserve to have that day in court. So I hope and pray that that day comes soon.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, all of that with just everything. And what was funny, my friend that told me about it, we're in like we're both teachers and we're in several Facebook groups. And his current wife, who was the girlfriend, we're in like a Facebook group with her apparently. I had no idea. And she was like I was like, how do this, by the way, this friend should be investigating crimes. This is like the person who like, you're like, oh yeah, my friend was talking to someone named, I don't know, Elizabeth. And she'll be like, what city were you in? Okay. Was it her? And it's just like, oh my gosh. In like 5 minutes, she will know every detail. And she's like, oh yeah, they've moved to Colorado. I think she knew all this stuff. And I'm like, how do you know this? And I was just like, I mean, it was flabbergasted, but it's kind of cool to be like, oh, we do have some sort of still connected. Now, I personally can't believe she married him. I would be suspicious. I would be like, I wouldn't trust anyone I mean, that's sad to say, even if someone's innocent, but you have that suspicion. It's kind of scary. But no, that one's such an interesting one. And now I'm like, okay, can we please solve it? That's like right up the road from me. So,
hope springs eternal. And there has been renewed interest in that case. Recently, Dr. Phil covered it. I was on Nancy Grace. She covered it. And there are, some different outlets who I've been in touch with about the anniversary next month. So who knows? It's one of those where I think all the pieces are there and someone has to actually put it together and put it forth to the district attorney's office. And that could happen at any time. One of the pieces of advice that I give, murder victims' families and people who are, still looking for justice is that there's no statute of limitations on murder.
Yeah.
It can never run out. So there's always hope.
Well, I will say a different case, the one from season 1, Damien Hurd. I will say that one, I have no idea what happened. So you did a good job. Like, I mean, in both of them, you presented the evidence. But like, for real, I can see, okay, it's suicide. I can also see, okay, this is murder. And I'm like, and for real, like I ended that and it was like at the end of Serial where you like kind of have to decide for yourself, is Adnan innocent or not? And it's just like, I have no idea. I could convince myself either way easily.
Yes.
So easily.
I'm right there with you. And I will tell you that I had someone come forward just in the last week who was a student at Western who was at the party and who has new information and new persons of interest in that case. And
That's exciting.
we are in conversation, and I hope to do an update episode, my first update on the Damien Hurd case in a long time.
Oh, that's so cool.
There was a period of time where I was getting all sorts of tips, and there were new, update episodes dropping frequently. But that was, it's 2021 when that one came out, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I love that people still find the podcast, and that they can reach out to me, and sometimes it takes me a while. My inbox is kind of on blast right now, but
I bet it is.
I try really hard to work through everything and flag things and not, completely drop off. But it's definitely piqued my interest.
I thought that was something that was interesting in the book that you talked about, was you're building these relationships. It was kind of eye-opening to me, because you see an hour of television and you don't realize how extensive the behind the scenes work is. You have to go make these first introductions, find the characters that you're going to work with, and then build that relationship. Do you still maintain some of those relationships with some of those people, or how does that work? Like in the case of Damien, where you're still looking for more information.
Yeah, in a lot of ways I do. It's something I try to keep up with, when there's anniversaries of the crime. I like to check in. I like to let them know I'm still thinking about them. As I've been doing this, going on 11 years now, I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed with the number of contacts and dates and things to keep up with. But I really do try to keep the lines of communication open, and know that, even if we haven't spoken in some time, if I have an update, like they're going to be glad to hear about it. They're going to want to know. And so I can usually get back in touch, pretty easily, thanks to social media as well as cell phones and email. It's like some things change, but something will stay the same, and I'll be able to track them down one way or another. And between 48 hours and then my podcast and my book, and I'm working on a new true crime docuseries now. And so a lot of times these cases kind of cycle back, and I'm like, hey, it's me again. I got a new show,
Yeah.
And it's really gratifying to me, that they'll continue to talk to me, that they want to share their story again, because, I want it to be a positive experience. I know it's not always, for everyone in the media, and it can't be, but, I try as much as I can to have those types of relationships that I can go back to, and that they will want to talk to me again.
I'm sure they're very difficult conversations to have. And it seems like you almost have to have like a psychology degree to kind of, some of the stuff that you were talking about in the book, just kind of pushing them just a little bit further and knowing where the boundaries are.
Yeah.
I was like, that's awesome.
That's hard.
Like some of it, walking the line, really.
Yeah, it's like I have a job to do. I'm trying to get the story. I'm trying to get the interview. I'm trying to get the information. That's part of it. But I'm also a human being, and I want to treat them the way I'd want to be treated. And I want to be respectful and sensitive, and, be as kind as I can, knowing that they've been through something terrible. And this is, the last thing I want to do is add to any of their pain. And, just knowing that, I can conduct myself in such a way that hopefully, they'll be glad to talk to me, even though the subject matter is rough.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you mentioned you have a new true crime docuseries. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, I will tell you that I'm developing it for Warner Brothers Discovery, and it is going to be about serial killers. So stay tuned.
Perfect. 'Cause one of my questions is, do you have any like cases, serial killers, crimes, like beyond like any time in history that you're like, you can't get it out of your head? Like any famous ones?
Yeah, I have too many cases floating around in my head for sure. I feel like the one that, it's not a serial killer case, but the one that I just really can't believe that we haven't solved yet, that there's not DNA, that we don't know what happened to JonBenet Ramsey.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes.
Same.
I want those parents to be cleared so badly. Like, I never wanted to believe that it was them, but the narrative at the time, and information that's come out, the police really did believe that it was the parents. And, in my line of work, cops usually fall into, a couple different buckets. And one of them is like, the straight arrow. They're going to follow the evidence wherever it goes. They're not going to have their biases. They're always going to be looking at every possible suspect. That's the cop you want. That's who you want in your investigating a crime, right? But then you have these cops that come in and they're smarter than everybody else in the room. They know exactly who did it from the minute they open the door, and they are going to prove their case. And that's a very dangerous type of law enforcement officer who will have tunnel vision, who will believe, like sincerely believe that they have the killer and they just can't prove it. And so in their mind, that justifies practically anything, right? Because they're like, well, this person can't get away with murder. But the fact is, they're not infallible. And if they don't have the evidence, they can't proceed as though that person is 100% the killer and ignore all evidence to the contrary. And I feel like that's what happened with the JonBenet Ramsey case. And they really focused on the parents. And whenever DNA evidence came back from her underwear that excluded the parents, they said, well, they just can't explain it. And they're just not going to focus on it. And they're going to go, look everywhere else. And it's like, you can't ignore the DNA here. Like we have to, we have to look at that as very important information that we should use to shape our investigation and our suspect profile, not say, well, this doesn't fit with the parents doing it, so we're going to throw it out, which is really what they did, like statistical analysis. So this is the outlier. So we're going to toss it and we're going to go, with everything else that hits right down the middle. And so, yeah, that case, I just would feel such vindication for that family if they were able to match it up, through genealogy and all the different, advancements that they have. If they're able to find a suspect profile for that, there's people who say they've solved that case, right? They have, maintenance workers, and they have people that, are in prison now that they say that's the killer. And I think if that were the case, the DNA would match. So, unfortunately, I don't think that one has been solved, but it's, people have confessed to it, they don't have anything to do with it, but it's one of those that I think we would all sleep better at night, just knowing who did that and having them pay for their crime.
I think
100%.
I think LJ and I might be a few years older than you, but
We
just
are.
for our age range, I think that one was such a high profile case, and we all kind of grew up hearing about it, and so it's just stuck with us. Same thing with like OJ Simpson. That trial will live forever. We'll know all the details, but there's just certain cases that stick with you. For me, whenever Christina Morris went missing,
yes,
because I used to go running all around that area, and I had a friend that lived in some of the apartments just behind Plano Legacy.
Yeah, I pass Plano Legacy all the time. I was in Plano today. And I think about it every single time. I really, it's so tragic and so senseless. And it's really shocking to me that Enrique Orochi was able to get away with it for as long as he did. And thank God for that crime scene tech that found that one drop of blood in the weather stripping of his trunk. I was somewhere recently, I couldn't tell you where, some book event, and a crime scene forensic tech came up to me and told me that, their friend had worked on the Christina Morris case, and they were the one who found the drop of blood. And I was like, please tell them I said thank you. That's amazing, because really that, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if they would have been able to even charge him with kidnapping, if he would have ever gone on trial. Once they found the body, that was incredible, but there was also no evidence on it. It had been there in the ground for so long, and there was no evidence tying it to him. Oh, they found her body. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
A
See, this
couple
is what
years
happens
ago,
when you don't follow true crime.
Yeah. A couple
You
years
just worry
ago,
about things.
they were developing some land for some new apartments, I want to say. And they uncovered her remains. So, and it tracks right with where his toll tag exited. It's all there. And I believe he took a plea deal in the murder. That's my recollection anyway, that because he already got life for the kidnapping. And so, there wasn't much to be decided,
she was
really.
still
But
missing and they were still looking for her and there was still a chance that she could be alive. So
Right.
Well, sorry,
disheartening.
Leyna. We just broke Lena's heart. No, definitely. I know that's just, I know that's the thing with like DNA. It's just, it's so cool, the advances in like in our lifetime where
It
and
is.
I love hearing about older cases where they're like they knew that someday there would be a way to test it, so they kept it, and how they have solved so many cold cases with DNA. I mean, that's just it's just amazing. And I can't imagine, like you said, like there might be more that someday a family member or whatever. And I joke that I can't ever commit a crime. My father is a convicted felon, and so they have his DNA. And so like that's why when you said
Oh,
that they
that's funny.
if there was someone in prison, they take their DNA. So and they would find if JonBenet, if whoever
Yep.
was in prison, they could have found them really fast. And so I joke that I can't commit a crime because even if they don't have my DNA, like I'm close, they'll be like, oh, close
They'll
kin
find
to
you.
this,
Yep.
a child of this kin. Well, that brings it down to 3. Oh, a female child of this. Well, that's just me. Like,
Yeah, you
but
got to keep your nose clean, LJ.
I do apparently. Darn.
That's what's holding you back.
That's what's holding me back from a life of crime. Just kidding.
If anything, my book should deter you from that because it's not a good way to go.
No. Well, and that one of the I did not write down their names. The 2 doctors when they're like pretending like they do
Oh.
the murder for hire and then they
Yes.
stage and
Yes.
then that with that video when they come in and she's like crying and like, oh my gosh, and it's like, wait, and I
Yep.
think I had seen that clip before because I watched the episode after reading the book, and I just was like, oh man, people do stupid stuff. I'm like, I've watched enough true crime that I'm like, I would not trust anyone to be involved in a crime that I was doing. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Like, unless it was like
Don't-
my best
yeah.
friend and I'm like, I need you to help me bury a body. Okay, I've got a short list of those people. But anyone else? No. Like, what is
Yeah,
wrong? I don't know.
chances are if you think you know a hitman, you don't. You probably know someone who's, maybe committed a crime, maybe they've done some unsavory things, but odds are if you ask them to kill someone for you for money, they're just going to go to the police and be like, "Hey, someone just tried to hire me as a hitman and I don't want to go down. So let's figure this out together."
I think that's what I loved about that. It was like I spent the money, but
that was so funny. He's like, I mean, that's the way to do it. Get paid and then go to the police because then
Yes.
you got this money to spend. It's so funny.
That hitman was very smart and very clever, and we actually had quite a good time hanging out with him, actually. He was like, I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I was very happy to take his money, and I'm glad that I spent his money. Yeah.
Was that the person that you met at the Italian restaurant?
It was, yeah, in Houston. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. It's always a roll of the dice. You're meeting someone who's an alleged hitman, and they suggest an Italian restaurant. And you're like, okay, this is all checking the boxes here. But yes, we ended up feeling like we could trust him, and we flew to New York with him and did the interview, and he was never charged as an accessory to that attempted murder, to the murder for hire conspiracy. He was given immunity in that case, and he always maintains that as soon as he got involved, he saw an opportunity to prevent someone from being murdered. Because if he had said like, "Oh, I'm not a hitman, you don't want to hire me," he's going to keep looking, right? He's going to try to, and maybe someone will take him up on it. Stranger things have happened.
Right.
People, have done that. I've covered those cases too. It's not statistically likely, but it does happen. So yeah, the hiring of a hitman, it's a tricky business.
Yeah. I would not. Well, first of all, okay, so like I feel bad. So, okay, you're gonna make fun of this. I feel bad when I kill bugs. I don't like bugs, but I feel bad. So I'm like, how? And I cry if I hit a squirrel or a rabbit. I sometimes cry if I see them dead. I don't like to see dogs and cats. I thought of like killing a person. I'm like, I think I would not be able to survive it either. Like, I don't know. But even the thought of I'm gonna hire someone to do it, I just am too not trusting. And maybe it also helps being around teenagers for so many years every day. They're always telling each other's business. There are no secrets. there are no secrets. They're going to tell someone. And no, I don't understand
Yeah,
it, which
I
is
think
good.
part of it, it's like they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to be the
Yeah.
one to actually do it. And then I think that they really believe that if they aren't the one to pull the trigger,
Yeah.
that they're somehow going to get away with it, or that they're less guilty, even though they're orchestrating the whole thing. And the really common thing is they'll be like, "Oh, make it look like an accident." That's what they want, right? And it's unbelievable, the darkness, that takes over some people's
Well,
minds. And yeah.
it's hard. Like, they should, like, if they listen to season 3 of Final Days on Earth, like, she totally rearranged the murder scene. And then they're like, okay, we have no evidence. The dogs did not detect anyone else in the backyard. No one has walked through your house. Come on.
Yeah.
But just all those things, like, it's hard to stage like a suicide even. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like she only got away so long with that because they gave her the idea. And then until they got the actual autopsy to be like, well, he couldn't have done it,
Yeah. He was shot from 2 feet away. How did he kill himself? Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's crazy. All my true crime obsession, I'm like, I joke that I know how to get away with stuff. No, I do not. It's like more and more, don't even try. Like, don't
Just
even
get a
try.
divorce, people. Don't do it. Don't
No.
pull the trigger. Yeah.
I mean,
Sign
for
the document instead.
real.
I think a lot of your book, it talks about, sitting in on these court cases. And these are, like, I joke that I don't read true crime because it's too realistic and it's too scary because these things actually happen. What's it like not witnessing the crime, but seeing the court cases play out? Because it sounds like you've sat through quite a few court cases from beginning to end and
Yeah,
seen
I've
all
lost
of it.
track of how many murder trials I've watched gavel to gavel. And, there are a lot of very memorable moments. And, opening arguments are usually like you really feel like you're watching Law and Order. Everyone's on top of their game. They're giving their best possible story for what happened, because that's really what it is. Give the jury a story they can follow. And so, the prosecution will get up there and they will give this really impassioned story of the killer, and they'll point to them in the room and they'll say, he fired the gun and he killed this woman, and, really hammer it home. And then the defense gets up and they talk about how there's no evidence, there's no proof, there's no witness, there's no, the gun hasn't even been found, whatever it might be. And then you're just like, well, I don't know what to believe, and a really good opening argument, you're just completely like, wow, I have these two competing storylines for what really happened. And now I get to have the witnesses come in. And, usually they start with the first responders, the 911 call, who arrived first. And you really just in your mind start to see, the whole case playing out. There's lots of boring days, like cell phone tower evidence, forensic accounting, all that kind of stuff. But the beginnings and a lot of the action that comes in through the first responders and witnesses, it's very compelling. And then you have your closing arguments, which now you've heard all the evidence, and then they tie it all up in a bow for you. And that jury deliberation, I've never had anything like the tension in a jury deliberation. You're just sitting there, someone's life's hanging in the balance, and you're waiting for that light to come on or that buzzer to go off to say that they have a verdict. And it's electric.
You're just as nervous as the defendants are, probably, and the families.
Yeah, you're so curious. You want to know where it's going to land, and you don't know when it's going to come down. And it's there's just so much uncertainty. Yeah, everyone is just kind of on pins and needles.
So crazy. Yeah.
Did you originally start out, like, did you want to go into true crime journalism, or?
I had no designs of being a true crime journalist. I just wanted to be a reporter. And, I started out in local news, working for a community newspaper called People Newspapers in Dallas, and covered everything. Covered the school board meeting, real estate, city council, and cops and courts, right? the police blotter, local crime. And that really got my interest early on. I started just writing more and more crime stories. I think a lot of it, just had to do with the fact that based on everything that was going on in my small, sleepy suburban towns, the crime was the most interesting to me by
Right.
far.
Yeah.
And I had like the who, what, where, when, why of a story right in front of me, with a police report. A good police report has all those details, and they have the victim and the witness, and a lot of times they have phone numbers and addresses and legal names and things that just make your job so much easier as a reporter. And so, yeah, I just kind of jumped on the true crime train and never got off.
And I know in your book you talk about you started out listening to podcasts, because that's kind of towards the end of the book. You start talking about your podcast, that you're The Final Days on Earth. And what podcasts do you listen to, or what are your favorites, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, whenever I got started, I was hooked on Dirty John and Serial, Up and Vanished. These were the shows that were my podcast gateway drug, right? And so now I have many. Lately I really love The Unforgotten, which is with Wes Ferguson. And season 1, he also has co-host Carol Dawson, and they're looking at the unsolved murder of Shelley Watkins in Corsicana, Texas. And it is a wild ride, y'all. It is
Writing down.
so good. Please do. Wes has been on my show. I've met Carol, we've talked, and we're definitely kindred spirits of Texas true crime. So that's another serialized one that I really enjoy. And then I really like Ozark's True Crime. And Roderick Jones. So she's another journalist, and she does cases in Missouri, which is where she's from. And so I just love it that she's so invested. And, the first season was on the Springfield 3, the unsolved murder of 3 young women who were graduating from high school, and they were all killed in the same home. And oh, it's just unbelievable. And it was her town. So she tells it, like no one else can. And then she's gone on and told other really twisty murder stories in Missouri, some solved, some like wrongful convictions. It's so good. It's really good. So yeah, that one is another one that I'm always excited when there's a new season that comes out.
Well, that makes me excited, because that is a case of the 3 girls that I feel like I've heard like singular episode 1. So you said it's like so I want to go listen to that, because that's another one of those where you're just like, what happened?
Yeah, it's really good. She does the whole first season on it.
Okay, very cool. Ooh, I'm so excited. Any other ones?
I really like Complicit. So that's just a single case. It's about a woman who went missing during the pandemic, Lauren DeMolo, in Florida, and she's still never been found. And it's really a wild ride, lots of twists and turns, and lots of theories on what could have happened to her. But to this day, no body. So it's one of those where, yeah, we don't know when or where the ending might come in. Yeah.
Okay, so your podcast, you have a few seasons of Final Days on Earth, and then now you've kind of shifted, right? Or are you going to still do both?
So I did a spin-off of Final Days on Earth after 3 seasons called Justice Pending. And so it is a weekly chat show with my true crime bestie, Susan, who lives in New York. And we talk about all the cases that keep us up at night, and, the ones that are in the headlines now, as well as the ones we can't forget. And so that's been really fun, new for 2025 for me to talk about a new case every week for the most part. Sometimes we do, a couple of weeks on one case, but I wanted to kind of expand, my Final Days on Earth universe. And I do want to come back and do another season of Final Days on Earth and do a deep dive on a cold case and go all in on just one case. But for 2025, when I had the book coming out,
I
was like, I want to keep the podcast feed fresh, but I don't think I can do like a year-long investigation. Like I just don't have, I need to clone myself, right? So I decided that, this was a way to still be podcasting and to also go on a book tour.
And it's fun. It's been fun to listen to you guys go back and forth and talk about different things and different theories. And it does make it it's more like current, up to date. I've listened to the Luigi Mangione
right
cases.
yes.
And so that was kind of cool. Like as it was happening, you were talking about it. So.
So we were not planning. We were planning to start, I say in 2025, because we were planning to start in January 2025. And then this happened in December. And
You're like,
so
we
were
have to.
like, we're going now. And so I think, yeah, we launched out with that. And I think we did 4 or maybe 5 episodes on him because we just couldn't get enough of it. And Susan was actually in Midtown the day that
When
the
it
shooting
happened.
happened. So I was like, oh, we got it. We got to do
Yeah.
this. You know,
Yeah.
this is a gift from the podcast heavens here. We have to do
For
this.
real.
So yeah, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. We really are, you know, workshopping these cases in real time and thinking, could we do this case for Final Days on Earth? Does it have enough? You know, it's enough for
Gosh.
Justice Pending for 1 episode, but could it be more?
It's a great way to kind of explore different people and characters and find out more about them and their story and see where it goes, because it sounds like whenever you were investigating for 48 hours, you would really spend like a year sometimes. I was kind of surprised you talked about you did what 3 to 5 episodes a year.
Yeah, that's
And
all that
I
we
was
would
blown away by
produce.
that.
Yeah.
I was like, that just, I think, is a true testament to how much work you put into this. And you're taking that same hustle and putting it towards your book. I mean, it's been really cool to see everywhere that you're going and everything that you're doing. It's a really good book. It's fun. It was enjoyable. And I was really worried because I'm not the true crime person that I was going to be scared. And I actually really loved all the behind the scenes looks about how everything works. I think if you aren't into true crime, it's perfect because it's more of it is a memoir, and it's telling your story of what was going on and this time in your life whenever you're young, you're starting your family, like there's all these different things happening all at the same time as you're going into this. So I thought from just an outsider's perspective that it was really interesting and intriguing and really drew you in. So good job.
It wasn't too scary for Leyna.
No, it didn't give me nightmares.
I appreciate that. You know, I have gotten a couple of really positive reviews from people who say they are not true crime fans, like in their review. And I think that's so funny and great. And I'm so glad they found my book. And you know, that was one of those things, you know, when you're talking about the book marketing stuff. And, you know, I really wanted it to be shelved in memoir because I felt like it was more memoir than it was true crime. But of course, it's a true crime memoir. So, you know, it goes, we did a slash. It goes in both sections. People can decide, you know, where to put it. And I think with the cover, a lot of times it gets put in true crime. But I think anyone who enjoys memoir is going to enjoy this book because,
oh, definitely,
you know, there's just so much of life experience. And, you know, I just happened to be working for a murder show.
Yeah.
And speaking of the cover, if our audience can see it on YouTube and on Spotify, the cover for this is just amazing. I love it.
I know,
it
love
has a remote control and then the blade of a knife. Did you come up with that? Like,
I did
the
not.
publishers?
All the credit to my publisher. Yeah, Ben Bella Books. They came up with it. They gave me like 5 different samples, and I knew right away that it was the knife remote. You know, I just loved it. And I like how they wrote Killer Story in 2 different directions, you know, and so you kind of have to hold the book and like twist it around, and it's like they're one step away from buying it once it's in their hands. So
they're looking at and manipulating it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I would encourage everybody. And LJ, did you say you had it on audio?
I did because I had been listening to the podcast, and then you did do like a cute thing. Okay, so for my listeners, there's the audiobook. And so even though like I knew, which Leyna, actually still haven't paid her for this book, she got it for me. So I need to do that. Remind me later. But I was like, well, I love to listen to memoirs and true crime. So this was like the perfect audiobook for me. Plus, I knew, like, as a podcaster, you speak very well. Like, you tell your stories very well. So I was like, okay, I want to listen to her tell me more stories. So it worked out perfectly for me. And I was telling Leyna is our audiobook gal. And but you read the physical copy.
I read the physical copy because Claire had signed it. And so I was like, I'm gonna read this, but now I want to go listen to it on audio just to I think it's great to hear a book when the author is reading it. And that brings a whole different level to it.
And I thought I knew about audio recording, and then I had to record an audiobook, and it was like a Olympic sport. It was so much harder.
Was
Really?
it?
Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea. See, now you got to write a book behind the scenes of an audiobook. No, I'm just
There you
kidding.
go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just talking for like 4 hours at a time, I'm
Yeah.
already starting to get hoarse right here, but yeah, talking that long, it's exhausting, really.
Oh, I can only imagine. And if you like make a mistake and have to like re-record, that's got to be hard.
And I
Yeah, so
hadn't.
they would have like a sound engineer and a producer director in there with me, and so they'd be listening and coaching me, and we'd go back and redo, do different takes, and yeah,
Wow.
it was really, really professionally done.
So was it crazy to be on the other end of the spectrum? Because then you're not producing it, you're being produced.
Oh,
So
it was such a relief, honestly, to have like all these other people, in charge of quality control. It was so nice. Yeah, I was like, can I bring you guys with me?
Oh, that's awesome. So are you going to write us another book? You
I
have any
want
ideas?
to. I'm calling it the sequel right now. I've definitely already started.
Okay,
I
cool.
want to write, a new memoir about what I've been up to since Killer Story.
and I think you could do a whole memoir on just your book tour. I'm
Right.
curious what this looks like because I'm like going all across Texas doing all the different things, and then Florida,
Yeah.
you're going to be there.
I
There's
think
just
it
so
could
much
be
to
really
do.
interesting. And then, like, the other side of it is I've also been developing this true crime show about serial killers, and we start filming tomorrow.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I'm like gangbusters busy. And, all this is going on in the background with, the TV show deal and the book deal. And
Oh my gosh.
I never in my wildest dreams could have imagined that the book would come out and 1 week later I would get the TV show finally off the ground.
Isn't
That's
that
so
how
cool.
life works though? Like you finish
Mhm.
one project and you're
Yeah.
just like, okay, we're doing it again. We're going.
It's funny because it's like, oh, you'd think I planned it, but really and truly, I was white knuckling it the whole time, not knowing if anything was going to get made. But it really is, a pinch me kind of situation. I'm busier than I ever thought I would be after quitting my job to try
Right.
to be busy. And now I have 3 jobs: book,
Mhm.
podcast, and TV show. But it is really, a wonderful problem to have, and it's great to be able to work on all my own projects and my own
That's
shows.
awesome.
That is awesome. Have your name
Yeah.
behind it, and
Yeah.
this is all you.
And like you said, getting credit for the work and being able, like it's actually yours. It's owned by you, not,
The
48
network.
hour NBC. What is it?
Right. Yeah.
CBS,
a very, very
CBS. Is
small
that the right one?
percentage, but yes.
But still,
As I learned in those negotiations, it's a challenge. But hey, I'm every time I do a new deal, I learn a little bit more, get a little bit more dangerous. So I kept
awesome.
the film and television rights to Killer Story.
cool.
That's
Still up for grabs if
That's
anybody wants
another
it.
dream that I would love to see come true, the scripted version.
That would be
That's
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have some calls set up, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm excited.
I know. I'm so excited for you. I'm like, come on, let's do it.
Thank you.
I
Thank
know.
you so much.
Well,
So,
it's
yeah.
been a pleasure having you on.
Yes.
I don't want to keep you if your voice is starting to go because you
I
have to
know.
film
You
tomorrow.
have
I'm like, oh my
you gotta film
gosh.
tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, guys. This was really fun, and I'm so glad that we did it.
Me too. Thank you so much. I'm so sad I didn't get to meet you in person, but someday
Yeah,
when you write
another
your next
time.
book or something.
I mean, where am I going to be next? I'm going to be in Allen in like 2 days.
There you go.
Is there a book signing there? Or what's going on?
Yeah, it's the Allen Public Library. They're doing an event on April 17th. It's at like this Allen Heritage Center, something.
You're like, I
It's
don't
not
know. I
far
have an
from us.
address.
Anyway, it's I do have an address, 450 East St. Mary's Drive.
Okay, I'm impressed.
I'm not the only one that knows addresses.
Oh my gosh.
No, well,
so
from all my social media posting, it just sticks
there you
in my
go.
head. But yeah, so yeah, it's that's on Thursday, and like
that's fun.
they're hosting it, and it's free, and the Neighbors Books is going to be there selling books
Oh,
again.
fun.
Oh, nice.
You could bring your
love Neighbor
copy, and I
Books.
could sign under the
For
Post-it
real.
note. Yeah.
I know. No,
Yeah.
it was so sweet of you to do that for me because
Of
I really
course.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be there. Especially once I figured out the you she was talking about and
connection.
the you that I was listening to. I was like, oh, same person.
Yeah,
Even
that's
better.
great.
Well, I hope
It
that
is.
someone else has made that connection now. They're like, oh,
I know.
watch
They
that
will.
48 Hours episode that she produced, and
Mhm.
they can come read the book.
Oh no, and I'm so funny when I watch the episodes. I'm like, okay, show us the producer, Phil produce.
Yeah,
I get
look
so
for it.
excited. So I'm like,
It's
there it
really
is.
funny because sometimes I even make cameos like in the episodes because there'll be footage in the courtroom or something, and I'll be like in the background typing.
Well, now
or,
you have to
know,
go back and watch again, LJ.
Oh my gosh, I gotta go back and find all of that.
different.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm like in some scrums, like in the Alec Murdaugh case.
Okay.
There's like this scene where we're all chasing down his attorneys, and everyone's like holding cameras, and I'm like going along, and someone's camera shooting me holding a camera. That's just so ridiculous. But I was like, oh, there I am.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, it's a riot, really.
That's
It
awesome.
really is. Which, and people need to know, there are some really funny stories that we did not talk about in here because you have so many antics. And there's one that I want to say it, but I don't want to say it. But when they thought that y'all had stolen evidence, I was dying when that got sorted out. I could only imagine the stress.
I'm
of
glad
that.
it was funny to you because
Yes, after the fact.
I would have been
No.
sweating, like, oh my
No,
gosh.
It was funny when it was resolved. And so I'm like, oh my God, this is hysterical. Like,
it is. That was probably
after the
most
fact.
surprising feedback that I got was that the book was funny. And I was like, I did not set out to write a funny book about murder. But that's sort of the idea where I'm doing that night of comedy.
It's the memoir.
and
It's
murder.
the
Yeah.
it's the memoir aspect because you are funny. And I think that people, like you said, Leyna, you don't have to like true crime. This is really getting to see the behind the scenes of the production of a show and of multiple shows. And I think too, the true crime community, like, especially if you love true crime shows, like even though it is about the behind the scenes, but that's the stuff that like we don't ever get. So I just loved that because since I love true crime so much, I love true crime television, I love podcasts, I love books. This was just perfect to kind of get the real behind the scenes. So kind of like you could pretend like, hey, I'm in that world too. Because I know what y'all do.
I wanted to give a glimpse. And one of the things that, really looms large in all true crime producers' lives is just the competition. And like 48 Hours, Dateline in 2020, like we are going.
And it's cutthroat. I didn't realize how cutthroat it was.
I know, but it makes sense. It made sense when you pointed that out. And it was like, whoa, like
there was one scene where something had happened. I won't say what it was, but I was like, wow, they really did that?
Yeah.
How? Wow.
I know.
Yeah, I say, it's like war and we don't fight fair, on national televisions.
So wild.
It was anything goes.
Yeah. All right. I know we already said we were going to let you go, I guess. Blah, blah, blah. But no, for real, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we loved your book. And, I know Leyna loved getting to meet you. I love that you wrote me a Post-it note for my book. And I hope people that are listening, you go get the book. Get either physical or audio, or if you're like me, if it's audio or digital, I also like to have my trophy copy for the shelf. Do that. Or show up Allen Library, although this will be after that event. But that's okay.
I'll be in Grapevine on April 26th.
Okay, that's a good one.
Talking Animals Books, 1 to 3 p.m.
Okay, perfect.
That's another option.
We'll link episodes to your Instagram page too, so people can see that as well. Because I know that you do post a lot about where you're going to be and when.
Yes. And so we'll
most
do
current
that.
Information.
Yeah, and I hope y'all will go listen to her podcast because I've listened to the 3 seasons and I've just gotten to where it's transitioned and I love it. And so if you like true crime, guys, go listen to that too. But get the book and the audiobook. And the ebook if you want. I don't know. I think I own all 3, honestly. Because when I really like an author, I like to support him. So I just let's just buy every kind.
I love it. That's the dream right there. That's the dream customer.
Or the weird bookstagram person. I don't know. Whatever.
We'll go with dream customer. That sounds way better.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you next time. Until later.
So thank you for listening to More Than a Book Club podcast. We are recorded and produced in McKinney, Texas.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.